Hello everyone, my name is Tim Savage. I'm the immediate past president of the Orchestra of Northern New York and would like to welcome you to this segment of Behind the Scenes of ONNY. We have a very special guest and a very dear friend with us today, Mr. Rande Richardson, the Executive Director of the Northern New York Community Foundation. Welcome, Rande.
Thanks, Tim.
Wonder if you might tell us a little bit about yourself and the Northern New York Community Foundation.
Sure, thanks. Well, lifelong resident of the North Country. My dad was from St. Lawrence County and my mom was from Jefferson County, so I'm kind of a combination of both. Still here raising my two sons and very blessed to be able to be in the community that's given me so much. So came to the Community Foundation about 11 years ago. And since that time, have had a great opportunity to learn more about how important community foundations are to a region. Really, in the basic of terms, community foundations are here to just work with donors to support the things they care about most, not just now, but in perpetuity. And we've really seen the value of that over our 90 years. The gifts that have been given to the Community Foundation and trusted to us, they're still at work today doing all kinds of amazing things.
Well, Jill, my wife and I are very appreciative of how you have made us aware of what philanthropy is and what it does, and that it doesn't need to be big. You just start the habit, and it's a good habit to start, and you've really helped to educate us on how to go about doing that in a sensible way. How did you come to know about the Orchestra of Northern New York?
So I was thinking about my history with the orchestra, and I know that the foundation had a long history of support of the Syracuse Symphony, and there came a time when the Syracuse Symphony no longer could serve the area. So I think that was the time when we started looking for an alternative to serve that niche and that need. And that's how I began to learn more about the Orchestra of Northern New York, and they came to our rescue. And we had a fund here that was dedicated to support live orchestra music in the Watertown area, and wouldn't you know, we have an amazing orchestra right here in our own territory. So that's really how I began to know the Orchestra of Northern New York. We also did an early concert before we were working with the orchestra on a seasonal basis at the Clayton Opera House, and that was a huge success and kind of gave us an entry point into additional conversation. So that's really how it began, and it's been an amazing relationship since that time.
It has indeed. The foundation has been a generous supporter of ONNY for many years. Please share with our viewers a brief summary about how the relationship with the orchestra began and how it has evolved over the years.
So, as I mentioned before, we were very fortunate. We had a fairly large endowment that was raised by local people over a period of time. And when the Syracuse Symphony was no longer able to serve this area, one of the real strengths of a community foundation is its ability to repurpose funds consistent with charitable intention. So we had this fund, and when the Syracuse Symphony no longer could serve this area, we were able to repurpose it to have the Orchestra of Northern New York come here. And again, the real joy and beauty of that story is that those charitable dollars given by many people are still at work supporting the original purpose. So while those gifts were at that time for the Syracuse Symphony, it was really to support live orchestral music. So having the Orchestra of Northern New York, local, North Country, and in many ways, because of the nature and how you work, and that the musicians are really doing it because for the love, pure love of music. I think the community has embraced it, and over time it's really become in every way just as good, if not better, than the Syracuse Symphony.
Thank you. We've been now 9 years or thereabouts in close collaboration. How has our relationship evolved?
So obviously in the early years we were transitioning from that original model that I described, and we've been working closely with the leadership at ONNY to continue to grow the base of awareness and support for what you do. We all here think that investing in quality of life in addition to basic human need is critical and important, and that's why funds were given to us through all those many years. So I often say we're only as good as the organizations that we give grants to, and the Orchestra in Northern New York fulfills a very important niche in our mission to support the overall quality of life. And so that has developed and grown, and not only with the orchestra as an organization, but with the people behind the organization. And I've grown quite close with many of the people involved with the organization, and it's been very mutually beneficial, and we all had the same objective in the end, and together we've been able to bring that quite a long ways.
The Community Foundation's sponsorship of the Watertown series of ONNY concerts has been instrumental to the audience growth in this area, for which I thank you and the Foundation Board. Our Executive Director, Kathy Del Giudice, often recounts her experience with her first concert in Watertown in the fall of 2014 at the Dulles State Office Auditorium. There were 86 people in attendance. She knew then she had her work cut out for her. Fast forward 5.5 years, and ONNY performed for 413 people at the Spring 2019 concert in First Presbyterian Church. We all attribute that success to you and the patience and generosity of the Northern New York Community Foundation Board. No question, just a statement our listeners need to hear. Next question. Now, what are the challenges and rewards of helping to bring high-quality orchestral music to the greater Watertown area?
I think, like many things that old souls like me appreciate, we have to continue to help the next generation understand how important music is to the human experience, to the soul, to our time on this planet. I think that relevancy, it isn't just ONNY, it's many things. It's museums and libraries and all kinds of things that past generations have understood. We just have to continue to find ways to make that accessible, relevant, and appealing to those generations. And I know that's a challenge, it's a heavy lift. That's part of where I think we can come in, and where we have helped is to, one, together we're stronger. I think our message is stronger. We've also tried to find ways to help provide support so that we can keep ticket costs reasonable for families and younger people. And I think that's a big challenge. And then I think just overall, the business model for what you do is tough. And it's going to require a collective effort to make it successful. We're not going to be able to do it alone. You're not going to be able to do it alone. So that whole concept of how together, if we want this to be here, we want this to be here for a long time, we're all going to have to pitch in and make it happen.
Amen. In addition to sponsoring the Watertown series, the Community Foundation has also funded a late summer concert at the Clayton Opera House for the last few years. Unfortunately, it was canceled because of the pandemic this year. How did this new project come about, and what can you tell us about the last 2 years' programs?
So the Community Foundation, in basic terms, it's a collection of funds. And it's a collection of funds given by many different people for many different reasons. And that particular series started because the Community Foundation received a bequest from a local gentleman who was a composer, classical music and pops. And while his gift to us was unrestricted, our board felt strongly that because of his life and his life's work, a portion of that should be set aside to support classical performances and pops performances at the Clayton Opera House. So that was a board decision, but certainly wouldn't have been possible without the generosity of that gentleman. So for many years we've had different performances there, and by far, and I'm not just saying this because we're sitting here, by far the most well-received, well-attended, and popular are the performances that ONNY has done. So in many ways, again, as I said before, we rely on you to make us look good, and every year at the Clayton Opera House that we've had you there, you've made us look good, and I know the crowds love having it. So that's a little bit of the story about that. It's kind of a nice take on how a donor, even though not intentionally, was able to reflect his values and the things that were important to him that now others can enjoy.
Wonderful. I shared with Tom Walker in another segment, but I want to share with you one of my favorite memories of my 16-year association with the orchestra. took place last August when we went out to dinner prior to the concert in Clayton, and then I had the honor of sitting with you and Tom and Mabel and their family, and just the level of joy on all of your faces with that program was a great reward. It was just an experience that's riveted in my psyche, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll just add one other thing, Tim, if I could, about that. I think that performance also makes a larger group of people aware of how wonderful ONNY is, because many of those people are people that wouldn't necessarily be here to attend the normal seasonal performances. And that was another thing that we looked at, was it instantly opens up the door to potentially more support from people who can actually see you live and in person at the Clayton Opera House. So I think that's a win-win all around, and I hope we're able to continue to see that happen.
As are we. The Northern New York Community Foundation holds Orchestra's endowment fund. In June 2019, your board, approved a $10,000 matching grant, and this June contributed another $2,500 to help grow our fund. Why are endowments important for arts organizations such as ONNY?
Well, I would say endowments are important for every organization, but particularly arts organizations. When I look at the Community Foundation, what are we? We're an endowment. We're a community endowment. We wouldn't be able to do what we do if we hadn't followed that model from 90 years ago. And what does that mean? That means that every organization, there's short-term, near-term, and long-term. And I think what it says to your donors, to the community, your stakeholders, when you're looking at all three of those pieces, not just one, but all three, it says a lot about how much you care about seeing that work go on. Yes, the short term, the annual, that's important, but a great stabilizer and a revenue stream for any nonprofit, but especially arts organizations, especially in a time like this, knowing that you've got that reliable, steady income stream to support your mission, that's very powerful. I would also say that it's also just an amazing way for people who believe in your work now and have supported it during their lifetimes, have a vehicle to support it beyond their lifetimes. And if it was important to them today, it should be important to them tomorrow and forever. And an endowment enables that type of giving. So it isn't just about an endowment and what it can do, it's about the way it can connect with the people that support and love what you do. So I think in so many ways, an organization without an endowment sort of is missing one leg of the stool that keeps it strong. So that's one of the things that if we're going to invest in you or any nonprofit, we want to make sure that that investment's protected and has support long term, not just one and done. So that's why you've seen the Community Foundation, not just with ONNY, but with all of the organizations we invest in, place a high priority on that. And I think sometimes just our little gentle nudge to be thinking mindfully and have discipline around that long term has been important, and I think will serve your organization and others well.
Well, it helped to stabilize us to a great degree when we entered into an agreement back in 2013. What are some of the ways in which music lovers listening to this conversation may support ONNY or the broader work of the Community Foundation?
So, and I kind of alluded to it before, the typical Community Foundation donor has a variety of interests. It's rarely one thing. And I often say to people that I'm fortunate enough to meet with, well, what is it you really care about? And while they may feel very sentimentally attached to a particular organization, it tends to be more, I really like what ONNY does. I really like what any organization does. And so we're always working with them, both during their lifetimes and in perpetuity and beyond, to say, well, okay, if that was important now, how can we continue to support that? So we look at it as being able to provide real-time support for ONNY, but to continue to work with you, your staff, your board, and those that love you most to say, okay, how can we make sure that the things you care about most go on? So we look at, in every way, this as a full partnership, a two-way street. We put our money where our mouth is, and I believe we also, in every way we can, tell the story of ONNY, tell the story of how love and appreciation of live orchestra music and the arts can be fulfilled through your work. And I have many people from out of the area who love the arts and want to see it thrive in their hometown. They're always asking us for ways that they can support the things they care about most. So certainly to have an organization that with great confidence I can say, this is where you want to invest and this is where you want to put some of your resources. That is the way, the way I see that we can help ONNY most. And overall, just continue to support you, build upon the investments we've made, and continue to keep live orchestra music in our communities. It's critical. I often say we're just a dot on a map if we're just supporting, sustaining our own existence here. What are the things that make life here special? That quality of life, that enhancement, the things that make us most human. We need music now more than ever. And we hear it all the time. It is the universal language, and there's a part of the soul that's touched when you hear music. I often tell people, when you think of some emotional event in your life or some milestone part of your lifetime, it's usually connected to some piece of music, and that can trigger an emotional response that's like no other. I just feel that in every way, when you talk about, we often use the word health and human service as well. Music can provide a huge deal of health and make us more human. So I want to continue to see ONNY survive, thrive, and be everything it has been and more. So I'm excited to continue to work with you and the whole ONNY organization to do that.
Thank you, Randy. If anyone listening is interested in finding out more about personal philanthropy or getting in touch with you for estate reasons, is there a website that they can go to?
Yes, so the Community Foundation has a website that can provide a good entry point and some information. It's www.nnycf, like foundation.org. And if not that, they can always call us directly at 315-782-7110. And we have a great staff here that are ready to talk to anybody and be of any assistance we can be.
Wonderful. On the way down, on the drive down today, I saw a sign that said, "Well done is better than well said." And you speak very well, but I have to tell you that our relationship over the years has meant the world to me personally and to our organization. It's been one of our sustaining elements. So it's nice to have you here today.
Thank you, Tim.
And we thank you for joining us.
Thank you.